thanks for joining us for the Superintendent's Report. I'm Carol Birdsong, and I am joined by Williamson County School Superintendent Jason Golden. And the first thing we need to acknowledge is that we have entered into the fall season, and the fabulous Jackson Jones and Steve Chesser from the Communications Department have set us up with a nice kind of pumpkin-y orange background.
As we record this, it's a beautiful day. The wind is blowing and leaves are falling off the trees, and you have an amber background for the fall.
Amber, yes. I didn't go like hard on, yeah, amber, good word. Good choice of words, Superintendent Golden. Okay, so as we get started, we are going to talk about, as we record this on a Tuesday, the Williamson County regular monthly school board meeting that occurred last night. We'll talk about the business there. We'll talk about some other upcoming events coming up in the school district too, starting this week and carrying on for the next few upcoming weeks. But first of all, we are going to start with some celebrations. And we shared many of these with the board last night. But first of all, we have to give a shout out to Jordan Elementary School, Chad Walker, Daniel Foshi, the administrators there, because Jordan Elementary School has been named a national Blue Ribbon School. Superintendent Golden.
We're so excited for Jordan. The National Blue Ribbon Award is really the biggest and best award a school can receive. It started in 1982. That program started in 1982. Carol, if I'm not mistaken, we've had 17 schools named National Blue Ribbon Schools over the years, but we've had a concentration of schools named National Blue Ribbon School really in just the last few years. Mm-hmm. I'm in my 6th year as superintendent. We have had a school named a National Blue Ribbon School every single year that I've been superintendent. And I'll tell you, I'm very proud of that. When I was a high school student, I tell this story sometimes and you roll your eyes.
Oh no, are we going to tell it again?
I've got to tell it.
Oh my.
My senior year, my high school in North Georgia outside of Atlanta was named a National Blue Ribbon School. 20 years later, I visited the school with my son, just kind of drove through the parking lot. It still showed that on the front of the building. It really matters. It is an award that sticks with you. The last piece I want to mention related to that, Carol, Williamson Inc., which is our local chamber of commerce, often hosts various community groups from different parts of the country when they come to study success. Our community is really incredible. And they will host those chamber groups trying to glean a little bit of information about what helps us succeed and what helps us be so great in so many ways. Cherokee County, Georgia, where I grew up, actually happened to visit last week, and I had that opportunity to share that story. And they have an excellent school system there, but again, they're trying to just find those best practices. So that was a neat experience for me to share that story with folks who actually experienced it.
Fresh on your mind, and yes, very timely, very timely. Okay, so also some other celebrations that we want to share with our viewing audience. We have racked up some hardware already in this fall season, and so just to share with you a couple of those, I'm gonna read them off, and then you can comment if you would like, and I have to hold it up because I don't have my glasses on. Maybe you remember what.
Carol, before you do read that off, I want to mention Jordan a little bit more because I spent so much time talking about my experience. Jordan has a team that will actually go to Washington, D.C. to accept that award. And that's an award that works and is valuable for the entire faculty, the entire staff. So I just want to reemphasize we're very proud of them. Jordan Elementary School is actually a fairly new school for us. They qualified for this award and won this award the very first year they could have done it based on the age of the school. And they won it for the achievement of their students. So we're very proud of that.
Yes.
With that, let's transition to
Let's go to athletics next. Okay. All right. So the boys middle school cross-country team state champions from Woodland Middle School. The girls across town at Heritage Middle School. Girls Middle School Volleyball State Championship at Brentwood Middle School. And then at the high school level, we have the boys Brentwood High School golf team earning a state championship and the Page High girls golf team earning a state championship. So very excited for those student athletes and their coaches.
You know, Carol, you started with some middle school awards, and it's really just been a few years that we've participated in the TSSAA middle school competition at most of our schools. Historically, we just had a group that was just surrounding Williamson County where our middle school students would compete against each other. But a few years ago, led by Darren Joins, who is our district-wide athletic director, our teams, our coaches, our administrators at the middle school level felt like it was most appropriate to give our students the opportunity to compete beyond our county. And one of the stories at the time that Coach Joins shared with me was that some of his colleagues in other counties said, well, you're going to become the SEC or the ACC of middle school athletics. And it turns out—
I believe it was SEC.
SEC of middle school athletics. And it turns out that there's some truth to that. We've had a lot of success. But I tell you, especially at the middle school level, that competition, the value that students get out of athletics, especially at that middle school level where they're learning the sport, they're learning what it takes to prepare, and whether they win or lose, they're learning how to deal with that. They're learning how to deal with success, and sometimes they're learning how to deal with a loss, because those are skills that are going to serve them well, not just in high school, not just potentially in college for some of those students who may, those very small number who may have that opportunity to participate in collegiate sports, but as adults, those valuable lessons that go beyond the classroom are what our students are getting right now. So it really does my heart good when I hear stories about middle school athletics.
And participation in extracurricular activities is a focus for the district as part of our strategic planning process. So athletics, the fine arts, clubs, any kind of student activity, research proves that students do well.
Well, and you mentioned research, and I often want to, I need to tell this story because our juvenile court judge addresses this. Our mission statement, our vision statement actually says that Williamson County Schools will provide a supportive environment where students are challenged to excel in academics, athletics, and the arts. And that's our vision, academics, athletics, and the arts. And we provide that support that challenges them. And we often talk about that combination, that you can have support and challenge at the same time. And that's what we do with our athletics programs and with our arts programs, where students learn to grow in ways outside the classroom. Academics is our focus, and it has to be. That's truly our mission. But our mission needs to be broader than that, to include arts and athletics. You mentioned the research, and I want to tell this story about our juvenile judge. For those students who are at risk and need additional interventions to the point where they might be in juvenile court, so often I see Sharon Guffey, our juvenile court judge for Williamson County, ask this question of them: do you participate in an extracurricular activity? And I will tell you, often those students who are most at risk, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And so she often in that setting will say, I'm going to require you to participate in an extracurricular activity. So one of our mission points, one of our strategic plan objectives, is to increase student participation in extracurriculars. We're actually focusing on the elementary level as well, because there are actually just not nearly as many opportunities at the elementary level as there are at the middle and high school level, largely because of athletic structures. Theater programs start at the middle school level, et cetera. So we have a number of principals who are working on things like robotics at the elementary level. Intramural basketball is starting to spread at our elementary level, really started by Oakview and some of their PTO members. That's a focus of ours. In addition to the excellent care, the excellent instruction that students get so that they can master the standards that they need to grow to the next level in mathematics or English language arts, we're working on growing them as people.
That connection to a school is very important for our students. Let's transition now and talk money and some budget activity that happened at last night's board meeting. There was an amendment to the general purpose budget for the Innovative School Model Grant, $15 million. Talk about what that is.
So we're at the front end of this year's budget, but 2 budget years ago, the state initiated a grant funding program that they called the Innovative Schools Model. And every school district was offered $1 million per high school and $500,000 per middle school to do something innovative. Our choice and our decision was to create what we are calling an innovation hub. We actually had conversations with Franklin Special School District, which is a K-8 school district that's within Williamson County. They have about 3,000 or so students. We have about 42,000, where they put their money for their middle schools into this same basic program, where we are increasing opportunities for our students in college and career technical education programs to engage in innovative programs. So the best example I have is we are working on an aviation program. We know that Middle Tennessee State University, which is in the next county over, one of the largest colleges really in the country, has an excellent aviation program. We want to open the doors for our students to, if they choose, head straight to just a few miles away to college to work on aviation. This money is being spent on building an actual facility where we can do those innovative programs. The space is going to be pretty wide open where we can transition those programs based on community needs. I gave that aviation as an example. We're also looking at some traditional technical programs such as electrical and HVAC repair, some of those programs that it's been decades since we've offered here, in part because the opportunities for good, successful jobs that can give you a good living are now here in our community, in part because the demand and the need in our community is there. Now, Carol, let me give you a little bit of statistics related to that. 84% of our students who graduated last year went straight to college. That means 16% didn't. They chose something else, whether it was the military or go directly into work or go into some technical program. But what we have found is that more and more our students who are going straight to college are also engaging in those technical education programs. We have students working shoulder to shoulder who might be going to Georgia Tech for mechanical engineering and straight into industry to do actual physical work to build construction programs, et cetera. So we want to make sure those opportunities are there for all our students to prepare them for the next level. We're excited about the Innovative Schools model.
This might be a tricky question, and I don't mean it to be, but where will this facility be located, and when will we break ground?
So number one, the facility is going to be located on the Franklin High School campus on the north side at the location where the Williamson County Government's animal shelter originally sat. It's kind of a little bit of a slight hill right there on the north side of the campus. It's going to be next door to our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, where we initiated an entrepreneurial program where students are starting their own businesses, where they're succeeding and failing sometimes with businesses when they're 15, 16, 17 years old to prepare them for that. Likewise, we're going to have that innovation hub right there at that same facility. Geographically, it's centrally located, so students from every school can transport themselves there. We already have the mechanism in place for them to do that because it's worked really well with our Entrepreneurship Center, our EIC. So we have all the infrastructure in place to facilitate that. Now we just need the hub and the teachers and the programming so that we can adjust as our community adjusts.
Did I doze off when you said that when we're breaking ground?
Well, I don't know. I
that?
don't know the date that we're breaking ground, but we are working on the construction documents right now. It is scheduled to open in fall of '26. So generally speaking, the construction schedule is about 18 months.
Okay, so we're on track.
Fall of
then.
'26 is when the programming starts.
Okay, sounds great. All right, let's talk policies. Couple of policies that were, I don't want to say confusing, but a little muddled in there last night. One was the Equal Opportunity Employment Policy, and one was dress code. And I know you'll explain this, but I think our viewers need to understand that when a law changes, a state law, federal law, we adjust policy to reflect any change in law. And so in my layman's terms, I think that's sort of what happened with both of these policies.
Well, so our in-house attorney, Dana Osbergs, actually gave some detailed explanation from an attorney's perspective, and I'm going to nutshell that, give a little bit of detail. First, I want to mention substantively there's been no change in the work we do. However, from a terminology perspective, there was a change at the federal level, and she mentioned the specific locations. The Federal Register has some requirements that are recorded in the Federal Register, and she gave details related to that. The essence of it is, in a Title IX setting, we cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. And there's a recent Supreme Court case that has included gender identity, sexual orientation as subsets of discrimination on the basis of sex. A few years ago, there was language related to separating out those separate terms, but then in 2020, the Supreme Court said those are all subsets of sex discrimination. So substantively, our work doesn't change, but the language changed in a couple of our policies based on the interpretation of the Supreme Court. In other words, we follow the law of the land. We cannot discriminate on the basis of those things that so many of us have heard most of our lives, on the basis of race, color, religion, age, sex, national origin, disability status, etc. And sex is one of those. And most of our students, most of the time, don't really look at our board policies. If you printed out our board policy manual, it would probably be about 3 inches thick.
Yes.
Now, it's electronic, but dress code is one that actually interests our students. And so as we discuss this, some of our students noticed the language change. The language change is compliance. What I've spoken to, and I want to make sure everyone understands, is no matter what, no matter when, no matter where on a school campus or at a school activity, our aim and our mission is to keep students safe. And frankly, it doesn't matter whether it's on the basis of any of those things that we know about. We need to keep students safe. We work on it proactively at the beginning of the year when our principals talk to their students about their expectations. We want to make sure, because we serve everyone, whoever arrives in Williamson County and chooses public schools gets served by us. So our principals talk to their students about their expectations for behavior towards each other. And because we are dealing with children, we are dealing with youth, mistakes happen. And students do need discipline that is designed to help them make a better decision the next time. And we have those conversations with our students as well. If they bring drugs to school, they will be suspended. If they bring a weapon to school, they will be suspended. If they threaten someone else, they go through that same process. And if they discriminate against somebody, bully them, then they will receive discipline to help them make a better decision next time. And it doesn't matter why. Mm-hmm. What matters is helping them and helping keep students safe, number one, and then helping those who engage in that activity get the appropriate discipline so that it won't happen again. So it attracted attention, but from an operational standpoint, it doesn't change that process our principals go through every day.
Okay. I want to touch on this as well. It seems like every board meeting during public comment, we hear from some passionate fine arts students who want to make sure that their theater teachers or others get the pay that they feel like they deserve. And so supplements have been discussed now for several months. And we do this pretty much through the budget process every year anyway, but update us on where we are with reviewing supplements for fine arts.
Well, so Carol, first, over the last few months, and I think it started near the end of our budget process, and our budget process is actually about 10 months because we have to get board approval. We have to nail down how much funding we're getting from the state, and we have to get county commission approval. So late in last year's budget process, somehow some discussion arose specifically about middle school theater supplements. And we were already having a discussion with our teacher leaders, the Williamson County Education Association. We have a responsibility to have conversations with them about, among other things, teacher pay. We had actually initiated that conversation. I think, but I don't know 100%, that some of our middle school students heard about it because we had actually started having conversations about hey, let's go back and look at our supplements. It's time to evaluate the market. It's time to evaluate what the most appropriate pay might be, what we can afford. And so conversations started because of our team discussions that of course went to our teachers. And so some students started doing some math on their teachers' supplements. And so we had committed with our WCEA teacher team to set a committee together to evaluate it this particular school year, to make some recommendations based on need and market conditions and the actual work in the coming budget year. So the last few months, we've had some middle school students speak to the board. It's really neat to hear those middle school students talk about those things. The way that they creatively prepare their minute-and-a-half conversation with our board, often it really just kind of builds me up, knowing that they have thought this through so well. So we're going through that process. Ultimately, we make a budget recommendation to the board in March or so. And right now, we are doing some analysis before that committee really gets together and drills down. What we know right now is our middle school and our high school arts teachers generally are paid a higher supplement than most of our neighbors. So that talk about they're going to leave for higher pay, on its face, I don't know that that will happen if it's exclusively related to supplements. Now, some of our neighbors pay teachers more. We are not the highest paying district in the region. And so we're constantly battling over teacher pay, which frankly, substantively, is a lot larger than what the supplements might be. So if we're going to make a change, it's not going to be based on market. It's going to have to probably be based on how much time our teachers are spending in those supplemental works. I will tell you, one of the things we're looking at is, has there been a substantial evolution in the work that our teachers do in supplements? For example, we mentioned middle school athletics. Are our middle school coaches spending more time in athletics now than they used to? Middle school theater. Historically, we've had a large high school production in the fall and a large high school production in the spring. And typically, it's a traditional play in one semester and then a musical the second semester. Years ago, our middle schools did not do that much. Now, many of our middle schools are doing multiple productions over the course of the year with middle school students. So has the work changed? So we're going through that analysis. We have those meetings with our WCEA leaders, usually starting in January or so, to prepare for that budget. So it's on our radar. We're doing the preliminary work to prepare. And then the final piece is going to be, can we afford a change? Because like anybody else, we have to have the revenue to actually make the pay increase. We're not going to know what the state funds for months. County government goes through their process where they determine how much revenue is coming in to fund schools. And you talked about deserving pay. Our reality is that stereotype of teachers don't get paid enough is true. Because we are funded from tax money, I got to tell you, I don't know that we will ever say, hey, we've got enough money. It's not going to happen. But what we are doing is making sure that we're thoughtful in an environment where we're conservative with our taxing to make sure that we do the best we can with the funds we have. So it's a constant effort, largely to make sure that teachers have a livable professional income, and supplements are part of that.
All right, let's transition into vouchers. Last night, the board voted to rescind a resolution that the board that was in place in March of 2024 had passed. And you're going to do a better job of explaining this than I am. The previous board had voted to come out against vouchers. The current board then voted to rescind that resolution. So there was a lot of discussion about that at public comment. Explain to our viewers where we are with vouchers at the state level and how potentially that could affect us here.
Well, first, thank you for the prompt about the state level comment that you made at the beginning. In Tennessee right now, and really for the past 2 or 3 years, that has been one of the most common discussions. Should the state initiate a voucher program or an ESA, Educational Savings Account, sometimes it's called scholarships, for students to attend private school? In other words, should the state use state funds to fund, to some degree or another, private school? Our governor, Governor Lee, mentioned a couple of years ago that he intended to bring something to the legislature, and he did bring something to the legislature last year. And at the state level, there was a lot of discussion. Many people feel passionately about it on opposite ends of the spectrum and everywhere in between. Ultimately, in last year's legislative session, the governor's proposal did not pass. And it's largely because of that split. Even our legislative delegation is very split on it. Our senator, Senator Jack Johnson, is the Senate Majority Leader, and one of his responsibilities is to carry the governor's legislative proposals to the legislature. So he brought that last year to the Senate and strongly supported it through his work. But we had someone else in the delegation that was one of the most vocal critics on the House side. So even within our community, the thought is split. So we're seeing that at the state level. Last year in March, during the legislative session, our board discussed it, and they discussed the question of, should we make a statement as a board? Many school boards across the state, many county commissions across the state were speaking on it. You know, one key component of the argument against it is, well, what's going to happen with state funding? And then on the other side, some of the arguments were, well, parents ought to have choice in some way to facilitate that choice. So that all that argument went back and forth. Ultimately, our board of 12 members voted 7-5 to approve a specific resolution. And I'm going to paraphrase it. We've published this, but I'm going to paraphrase it, that in essence said, we don't support vouchers in Williamson County, and we ask the legislature to focus on ways to improve funding for public schools. That was the essence of it. And it passed 7-5. At the time, my experience told me that a 7-5 resolution in isolation is not going to make a big difference at the state level. And I emphasized to our board members at the time, your conversations with your legislators is going to be a whole lot more, are going to be a whole lot more valuable than whatever we do from a resolution perspective. And a conversation is typically more valuable than one printed statement anyway. So anyway, that passed 7-5. Ultimately, because of the legislature work, nothing passed at the state level. The governor has announced again this year that in this new legislative session, he intends to bring another bill. We have heard that it's not going to be the same. It might have some similarities, might have some differences. Nothing's been filed yet. We had a board member this month say, we have a new board, we had a new election, we have 6 new board members who weren't on the board even in March. And that request of our board was, let's rescind that resolution and be neutral. And there was talk about starting over, let's see what comes later. There was also talk about we just need to be neutral on state issues across the board. And I tell you all this to tell you everyone has an opinion on this. So my encouragement to the board is vote the way you want on the resolution, but know that that's not going to be valuable compared to your individual conversations with our legislators. We actually had a conversation just yesterday with Senator Johnson. The board had a planning session, and we talked about that and some other legislative issues, because I am convinced we have to have those conversations with our legislatures regularly, because the state does have responsibility to fund public schools. Historically, Williamson County Schools has received, from a percentage standpoint, less of our budget from the state than many of our neighbors, because the state funding formula actually pulls some from the counties or producing more and helps other counties. And so it takes a little bit more conversation about where our specific needs are. Short answer, which I can't give, is our board is split on this issue. They're split at the state, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation in Tennessee. But for us, making sure that we're taking care of our students and doing the best we can for what I'm convinced makes the biggest difference in Tennessee has to be our focus.
And that's where I wanted, that's kind of where I wanted you to end up, I guess, is that your stance is we will do whatever we need to do to make sure Williamson County is taken care of, as you as superintendent.
Our board members are elected officials, and they are elected to represent us. And they're going to have varied opinions. But for us, a focus on public schools and our mission has to be the case. Some of it's funding at the state, but sometimes it's laws that are passed that might actually interfere with our excellent work. We're one of the highest performing districts in the state by almost any measure. We're comparable to some of the highest performing districts across the country. And sometimes they'll pass a law that might make our work less easy, more difficult.
Yes.
Third grade retention was an example.
Yes.
They passed that law 3 years ago, and over the course of the last 2 years, they've made enough modifications based on conversations that actually it's netted out to be pretty good, because they've included a summer school program for students who are struggling and need some interventions where they might be able to retain more from spring to fall because we can continue to give them programming. And the state's funding that. That came as a result of what on its face at the very beginning was a net negative for our students. We have to have those conversations with our state legislators so they understand what our professionals are doing and can pass or not pass laws that actually help our students. It's going to be a conversation among our community members and also across the state, because people feel strongly about this. I have strong opinions myself about that. But for us, we have to focus on our mission of serving our students here, regardless of what's going on elsewhere.
Our time is up as we end on that note, but I know you want to encourage everyone to get out and enjoy all the festivities, fall festivities at your schools, whether it be a football game, whether it be a fall play, and lots of fall festivals are happening as well. So we encourage you to do that, and we thank you for joining us for the Superintendent's Report.